It's Thursday night, and you're listening to Breakdown with Levels of Wrestling. Don't forget, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you give the video a like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're not, you can always head over to levelsofwrestling.podbean.com, where you can hear this show as well as last night's episode of Lowdown, where we spoke to Gunner. As on there as well, you can hear shows from Wrestle Addicts, Mind of Carnage, Just Saying, and the Ringside Ramblers as well. Don't forget, if you have downloaded that, you can always get our app as well, which you can get from the Google Play Store, completely free for Android devices at the moment. And if you're feeling extremely generous, you can head over to TeePublic, search Levels of Wrestling, and you can buy one of our awesome t-shirts. They aren't overpriced, and they don't just have our names on them. You'll enjoy that. Joining me tonight, we've got the one and only Mr. Skeletor. How are we doing tonight?
Doing good.
Yeah, I even gave you a title this week. You're Mr.
Yeah.
I think next time we'll go for Professor.
Please, that's my father's name.
So, Professor, we'll go with Dr. Skeletor. So, guys, we're here tonight to talk about kayfabe, or in this instance, the lack of kayfabe. For those who don't know and that aren't really into, like the wrestling lingo, kayfabe is essentially fiction within wrestling. Not like wrestling isn't fiction enough anyway. There's fiction within fiction. Bret Hart,
it's Kayfabe.
If you're Canadian at all, it's Kayfabe. It's just the way it goes. Everyone speaks funny. It's Kayfabe, don't forget. So, what's your issue with kayfabe, my friend?
My issue with kayfabe is that the current roster, it doesn't seem to care about it and uses their real names on Twitter for some reason and talks about how they're playing a character all the time, even though everyone knows that. And it's just pointless and causes a disconnect between what you see on TV that doesn't need to exist.
Right, I get that. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're, say, Tony Stark in a film, right? You're watching Iron Man, you see Tony Stark. It's Robert Downey Jr. Everyone knows that he's Robert Downey Jr., but interviewers still call him Iron Man by mistake. That's like natural kayfabe. And they're not doing that with Trump. But whereas divas at the moment, such as Cameron, as we were saying, are using their own names on Twitter and they're, talking about being a character, it's like they have to reinforce to fans, like, hey, I'm not actually that bad person, don't hate me.
Yeah, and that's the exact opposite of what you want. You want people to hate you. You want people to forget for a second that you're a real person and to despise you. That's kind of the whole point. Of you don't get that Freddie Blassie, people are burning your car, you're pouring battery acid on your car thing. They realize you're actually an okay dude.
Right, and I think the one thing that gets me is, like, if you tell people you're a character and they watch you being bad, they're going to go, oh, it's okay, it's just a character. You don't want that. That's the opposite, like you said. If I was being a bad guy, I want to be fucking loathed. Like, you're not going to like me. I don't want you to like me. Why would I want to tell you, hey, this is a character? I'm going to be like, no, this is me in real life. Like, there's only a few people that I could really say probably truly lived their gimmick.
Yeah. I think Ric Flair's gimmick is living him. So
at this point, the alcohol is living Ric Flair.
Yeah, that is what his brain is now, just a puddle of alcohol.
A puddle of alcohol with a couple of bits of grey bits floating around. But yeah, I mean, some guys like Undertaker, obviously, he used kayfabe to the extreme, and he still has a private life because of that. So I mean, it can benefit stars.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't actually let his wife, Michelle McCool, because she puts pictures up sometimes of her and him, but he doesn't let her show his face.
Yeah, my favorite one of those. She posted one recently. It was like, "Hey, it's me and the husband," and it was her and a cardboard cutout of him. I was like, he's now got to the point where he's just like, I'm going to take the piss because you're going to keep doing this.
Because Taker has managed this whole thing where we have basically no idea what that dude is like as a person. We can kind of guess that he's kind of got the kind of biker Taker thing is closer to him, but we don't really know anything about that guy at all.
I personally think he's into ballet and likes drinking tea with Miss Nesbitt. I mean,
I saw a picture of him and Paul Bear at like an opera. It's so I don't freaking know what he does.
I'm sorry, you actually saw him at an opera. That's
Yeah, it's like
crazy.
it was like I think it wasn't supposed to be an opera. It was just a picture of him, and he's not in the Taker stuff, and Paul Bear is in like a dumb T-shirt, and they're hanging out at a freaking like opera. So I don't know anything about Mark Calloway.
Wow, that's crazy. Um, I mean, obviously, with kayfabe though, there are some characters that works really well, kind of blurring the lines between the two. I think the perfect example at the moment would be like Vince, Triple H, and Stephanie.
Oh, they have always done a really good job. Like Vince started it in the '90s with the whole like I'm going to take what people think about me and just throw it on TV in its most extreme form possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite example of that is the Montreal Screwjob, and I say Screwjob lightly, because that in itself could have been kayfabe. No one will
Yeah,
ever.
yeah. You would. I think it probably was a real thing because you don't have people coming out from that era who are pissed off about something, saying, "Oh, that was fake." But I don't know. For all I know, yeah, it could have been a whole work itself.
And that's the thing. I mean, he came out of that whole interview with like Brett screwed Brett. That's the minute people started hating Vince. Like not just the character, they hated Vince.
Yeah, and Triple H, especially, he did very well in his feud with Daniel Bryan. He incorporated the whole burial, keep the little guy down thing that people think he does into his TV character, and it was fantastic, and it worked.
Exactly. I mean, so that's the example. There are times that kayfabe still exists in WWE, and I hate when people say like, "No, kayfabe's completely dead. The internet's there." WWE used the internet to make you feel about kayfabe.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes they very smartly use the internet to mess with you because you think that's true, and it isn't. They report fake injuries and all sorts of stuff online just to mess and people assume it's true because it ends up on dirt sheets or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If it's on a dirt sheet, I guarantee maybe 7 out of 10 times WWE has leaked that themselves.
Yeah, pretty much there have been some straight up like pure obvious fake stuff that ends up on dirt sheets as real. So like I'm pretty damn sure Dolph Ziggler is not actually injured from his obvious injury storyline, despite the fact that WrestlingInc.com or whatever says he is.
Right, yeah. I mean, they'll put he's legitimately injured. Well, no, he's not. The fact is, you've been worked. You're a
Yeah,
mark still, and that's okay.
who gets hurt in segments where you're supposed to get hurt? Like that never actually happens. Like that larynx crush move did not actually crush his larynx.
I think my favorite thing is obviously people are like, "Oh my god, he's really hurt." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's also not signed a contract. Let's put two and two together here." We're meant to be smart fans. That's the whole point of, the IWC.
Yeah, freaking, and I like that. I like that they've done that. 'Cause, there's a really great story Ted DiBiase told back when he was in like the NWA or whatever. He got pile drivered on the outside with like no mat, and which was kind of a big deal for early '80s wrestling. That was like extreme, and so he sold it by going to the hospital, and then he stayed in the hospital for 3 days as doctors kept telling him they can't figure out what's wrong with him.
See, that's cool. I like that kind of kayfabe. I know no one would ever do it now because it's time, it's effort. I really wish they would go back to that kind of stuff though. When you believe that wrestling is real or that you believe something in the story is real, that's when it becomes more gripping. But it
Yeah,
becomes so much harder when stars are now telling us that, I'm just a character on a TV show. Don't feel sorry. I'm building a brand.
yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. I hate it. Like, there's no need to do that. Like, yeah, if you're a heel, do whatever you want to get people to hate you. If you're a face, don't act like a douchebag in public because that'll turn people against you by itself. You gotta on both sides keep it how you are on TV, at least somewhat.
Right, I think the perfect example recently that I could give was there was an incident where CM Punk ran up through the crowd and someone punched him or accidentally hit him, and CM Punk lashed out basically.
Yeah, he span around and just went at him, which
Right.
I kind of get. You're in that moment. But
And the fact that he didn't apologize made him seem like a bigger ass, and that added to his character.
yeah.
But if that had been someone, say, like Ryback, he'd have been forced to make the apology.
Oh yeah, because he's a face. Like you don't want him to come off as a scumbag. Could you imagine if in the era when Teddy DiBiase again was doing that whole shtick where he'd bring people up on stage for like make them do embarrassing things for very small amounts of money and usually not even give them the money. uh, could you imagine if he like in that era if there was in Twitter or whatever and he was like, "Oh, don't worry about that. That's just my TV character." Though all those people were paid backstage. Don't worry about it.
I would like to think, maybe at some point, I don't want to say when Vince dies, because that seems to be the cliche thing to say, but
Yeah, it's a
like,
very cliche thing to say.
like at some point in the future, they're gonna say, okay, look, we need to start making characters. We need to start making people believe these characters are real. The whole point of giving us a gritty character, like for instance, Luke Harper, was that you're meant to believe he's actually like that.
Yeah, and he except for a very small little thing he's wrote about Dusty, which yeah I can't blame him for. He besides that he's stayed in character from what I've seen. He doesn't just write dumb crap on Twitter that makes him seem like a normal guy. You believe he's a creepy weirdo.
The last good interview that I remember being done in character was actually before Fandango's WrestleMania debut. He did a thing with, I think it was Sam and Opie. They said his name wrong on the show, and he literally just walked out.
Oh, that's great. That's
Like
perfect.
he got 10 minutes into the interview, they said his name wrong once. They didn't overemphasize the vowels, and he left.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One of my favorite wrestling interviews, probably my favorite wrestling interview, is with Goldust on the Conan O'Brien show, where he just acts like a total insane person the whole time, and Conan kicks him out of the building. It's
Wow.
yeah, it's fantastic. And I think that was probably a work. Like I think that was probably planned from before for him to do that, but it's awesome because
Right, but you
it
enjoyed
goes
it,
with the
didn't you?
character. Yeah, because when he tried to molest Conan O'Brien on stage, it was pretty weird and uncomfortable, but it was supposed to be.
Right, and I mean, if you think back to promos like Mankind did the Three Faces of Foley in one promo,
Oh, that was very strange.
yeah, it could, if people had been like, "Oh my god, like that can't happen because he's one guy and we all know this," they wouldn't have enjoyed the promo. Like, you still enjoy the promo even though you know it's one guy because
Yeah,
he stuck to the characters.
yeah.
It's not like he
He did.
came. Sorry, on you go.
He very impressively made it so that he had himself talking to himself, talking to himself, and you could tell which one was which. Like even if you closed your eyes, you could tell which one was saying what thing.
And to me, that's one of the big things. I mean, I know we've spoken about characters like Kane and The Undertaker, even Goldust. Nowadays, there's not really a character like that. And that's because I don't believe that fans would get behind that kind of kayfabe.
Yeah, there's not quite the same level of like extreme. No one knows anything about this guy thing that those guys had in the '90s. But I mean, that is partially like you said because of the internet, but that does not prevent you from like doing something. Like, yeah, like you might end up on Wikipedia or whatever that your real name is, John Smith and not the Gladiator. But
I was
if you
christened that. Don't you be going against my Christian name.
but if you play it up enough, people kind of forget. They forget the dumb like crap they read on the internet. They get in the moment. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my idea of kayfabe is that it's real enough for you to believe that something could have happened. Like when they play up an injury storyline, I want to see someone injured. Like my favorite example of this is Sandman. There was a story in ECW where someone had, accidentally put a cigarette out in his eye. Like they were in a match and they knocked the cigarette out of Sandman's mouth
Yeah,
and it had gone into his eye. Now he sold this for a full month. He wouldn't answer the phone. He wouldn't go to his front door. He made his wife go do all the shopping, the laundry, all that kind of stuff when they went out. He wouldn't do interviews. He had to cancel any appearances he had. Like that is the perfect kind of like selling of an injury ever.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, because you don't want people taking pictures of you just wandering around when you're supposed to be horribly debilitated.
yeah, you've had a cigarette put out in your eye, and oh look, you've got two eyes. What the fuck?
How did that happen?
One's glass, I swear.
Oh
But
man, like yeah, I like stuff like that. I do like stories of like the original Sheik. When if someone recognized him in public when he was out of character, he kept flash paper in his pants so that he would light it up and throw it at him and run away.
see, that's really cool. I love that. It's extreme, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to think as well, like obviously today's stars, there's a few of them that are doing it quite well. Like Bray Wyatt keeps off social media. He only really tweets what WWE tells him to.
Yeah, he usually just tweets like "Follow the buzzards." Da da da. I will take on Ryback at this pay per view.
Anyone but you.
Yeah, he'll do like the bare minimum generic stuff, but it doesn't break his character.
I mean, you want to talk about a real issue is that Dean Ambrose, this really gets me. Dean Ambrose's Twitter was
Oh,
literally, I started this because WWE made me.
yep.
And that's all he said.
Yeah, it's fantastic because I don't know anything about Dean Ambrose as like a dude, as a what he likes or feels as a human being, because he doesn't put anything up like that on the internet. He is, it allows you just to think of him as being a crazy person, like his character is.
Yeah, I mean, it works, and in some ways it doesn't. Because the way I'm like, oh, okay, if we're meant to believe that WWE are using things like Twitter and social media to make storylines, anything he now says on there is going to be a case of, oh, well, that's a storyline.
Oh
Oh, wow. Like, I
yeah,
can't wait
yeah.
until they play up that he's dating Renee.
Oh God, I hope that never actually transpires.
No, they're going
That,
to
that
eventually.
that just doesn't. I don't know. I don't know if that feels right for him as a character. Because
But he could be crazy in love. And you know that's going to be a t-shirt, right?
I want him to climb up a ladder or whatever and jump off and do the flying elbow drop thing, except turn it into a hug as he falls.
Oh no, you see, I've got this image of like, you know how Flair used to run and he would drop the elbow onto his jacket?
Yeah, yeah, he
I
would
want
just
to do
spaz
that
out a
onto a
little.
box of chocolates from the ladder.
And then he just whips this destroyed box of candy at her. And it's
Yeah,
like, there you
like,
go.
I'm crazy, I love you. Like, we all
Oh
know
man.
that Dean's not actually crazy.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't give you like a lot to tell you he's not, so you can kind of, you can imagine it, I guess.
I
Like
think,
yeah.
when it comes down to stars and social media, like kayfabe wise, so long as they're not saying their real names, they're not saying, I'm a brand, I'm building a brand,
Oh
or
God.
hey, by the way, I've got an appearance in this movie, you should go check it out. That stuff bugs me.
Oh man. Like not even out of the context of kayfabe, the comment "I am a brand and I am building it" would make me want to punch you. Like, oh my God, that is so. Like, especially since she is a TV character, that's just ruinous. But even without it, that's awful.
Like guys like Wade Barrett, when he became the king, like they did the whole King of the Ring persona for him. He should have
Yeah.
had a royal tweeter where he didn't tweet and he had someone do it for him.
Yeah, he could have had something goofy. Well, obviously, for real, it'd just be him. It'd be funny to have to write it as someone else talking himself up as somebody else.
Right, and you maybe change over the name of the account and things like that, or start a new account. WWE are always doing that. Like a
Yeah,
J&J security one's out there, like an official J&J security one.
yeah.
Like,
Though, according to dirt sheets, both of those dudes are dead. So,
yeah, but according to the dirt sheets, we were due to have like a Stone Cold return 8 months ago, and CM Punk was due to return, and then they were going to feud, and then we were going to have a shitload of things.
oh yeah, I'm so glad that we have finally, as like a couple months ago when that lawsuit happened, exited the period where every other week somebody reports that CM Punk is in the building or in the area or whatever, even though it's total bullshit.
Well, he wasn't even in Chicago when they did the show, so that should tell you something.
Yeah, but we had that period was every other week. Even freaking Dave Meltzer or whatever was gonna tell you that CM Punk was coming back.
Man, Dave Meltzer is a guy that makes his own kayfabe. Like he lives in his own story world.
Yeah,
Like
he's a guy who thinks he reports the truth with any level of accuracy.
yeah, exactly. And once in every 6, maybe once in every 7, will actually be accurate.
Yeah, like he used to back in the day, he was like your only source for that kind of stuff, and he was fairly accurate. But now he does not have it together anymore. I think he must have lost whatever connections or whatever he used to have because he just puts up like the same generic crap everyone else puts up, and it's always wrong.
I mean, if WWE and wrestling companies like this now want to confuse people with kayfabe, like I said, put it out on social media. I mean, the best thing you could do with social media is make it another part of your show. Don't integrate it in the show, but you can have certain
No.
comments go back and forth. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's you can have people argue on Twitter about stuff, or make it a separate thing. They can kind of make it seem like a more personal thing than it actually is. Freaking, I kind of hate him because he complains on Twitter about his career and stuff. But Dolph Ziggler did when he was feuding with Sheamus, just talk complete shit about him, and that was pretty good.
yeah, I mean, for instance, SmackDown tonight, there is a match between Ryback and Seth Rollins. Now, if they really wanted to hype that and make it a big thing, they could have had like Seth be, "Hey, my championship's better than yours." Quite simply put, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
little things like that. Just hype it up, make the match seem important.
Well, that's actually an issue because I wish they would have done that on because SmackDown it seems like such an afterthought. Like I feel like if that's a freaking champion versus champion match. That should have been told to people on Raw that on SmackDown we're gonna have this momentous champion versus champion match. But
See if that turns
now
out to be a great match. I'm gonna be so upset because I won't have watched it.
yeah, I've absolutely no idea if that's gonna be any good. I'll probably look at it.
Of course, you will. It's got Ryback in it.
Oh, I like both Ryback and Rollins. They're both though Ryback. Ryback is getting less bad in the ring. I'll give him that.
Yeah, I think that's because they're giving him more opponents that are actually used to his style now.
Yeah, and I kind of like the 300-pounder frog splash he's been doing.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, like it's unusual, and I kind of enjoy it. Like it's like when Abyss would throw out some high flying stuff, you'd be like, "Oh crap, I forgot he could do that."
Yeah, Abyss with a top rope leg drop and things like that.
Yeah, because dude's freaking 6'7", 350, so you're like, "There's no way he can do that."
Yeah, and that's always only 2 inches taller than me. Ugh, I'm gonna have to grow. Keep up.
Could you do an off the top leg drop?
I can backflip quite.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. Dang,
yeah,
I can't
and
backflip.
I can backflip. I can front flip. I'm quite agile for a big guy, so I'm okay with that. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, yeah. Respect for that because I can't freaking do a backflip, and I should be able to.
Do you know what's funny? Like guys, in the lower card, like I don't want to say lower as in it's a bad thing, but guys who are on the show less, like Zack Ryder, for instance, he used social media to create his own kayfabe in such a positive way. Do you
Yeah,
think like they should be doing that more often for other stars? I mean, if you're not in a big storyline, should you be allowed to go on social media and start creating your own?
yeah. As long as you don't say anything that like, as long as you don't say anything wrong that messes something up, then yeah, you should be able to kind of create your own grassroots movement for yourself, like he did. Uh, However, don't be like Dolph or sometimes him, where you complain about your career on Twitter, and that just causes issues. Or like when Cesaro publicly complained about the main event of a pay-per-view that was coming up in like a week. These are mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, The one example I really liked of someone using social media just to create buzz like that was actually Dean Ambrose and Mick Foley. I mean, I don't know if you'll remember that. I think it was
I,
WrestleMania 28.
huh.
There was a public, meet and greet where Mick Foley was there, and all of a sudden Dean Ambrose appears, and he's, bad mouthing Mick Foley, and this was going to be the start of a feud, and they were going to use this down in NXT, and Dean ended up mentioning Mick Foley's family, and he was asked not to, and he did it again, and they kind of just backed out the whole thing. But that got so much attention at the time because it was like, oh, are they actually arguing? Is he saying this in public because it's a real deal?
Yeah, as this like nobody dude, like to the normal standards of people, this nobody guy uh insulting this legend just because he's like an asshole in real life or whatever. And
Yeah.
it created this possibility that was real, which
Well,
is what you want.
I think a lot of the blame, the idea behind that was he was going to blame Mick Foley for like hardcore wrestling and things being the way they are now. Like it's unsafe, and he didn't want that. So it was almost like the polar opposite to what his character is now.
Nick Foley, you're the reason why I had to take a freaking circular saw to the forehead in ZZW.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
That's
Like
actually, that's actually an interesting idea.
it could have been a really good story provided they used it correctly and put everyone in the right place.
Yep,
But
and
that
then
only
nothing
worked.
came of it.
Yeah, and that only worked because they were the only two people who knew what were going on.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that's a big issue with WWE? Obviously, people talk about having insiders and these sources on Reddit. Is it worth believing them? Do you think it's ever, anything comes of it?
I think WWE keeps a tighter ship than most people think they do. Because in terms of major companies, like their size or larger, like freaking Sony has had way worse stuff go out, or Warner Brothers, or like bigger companies have had like way worse stuff. And they mostly are like, oh, this Raw script leaked out once a year, or this like thing is told, this thing that might have been true is told you to not be true, or vice versa, like a few times a year. Like it's really not that much gets out that's actually true.
Yeah, it's like once every blue moon, something correct comes out. Like recently, there was the list of shit that Vince doesn't want you to say on commentary.
That seems very real.
Yeah, well, some of it
'Cause-
does and some of it doesn't.
yeah,
Like
I
you're
didn't
not
read through
allowed
the
to
whole
say
thing, but
you're not
there,
allowed
there
to say war. You're not allowed to say what was it? Sports entertainment. They don't want you to say that anymore. You're not allowed to say belt. It's not a
uh
belt; it's a title now. And
okay, but I agree with the don't say belt thing. Like I can say belt because I'm some like shithead on the internet, but the wrestler should not be saying belt because it is a championship or a title.
yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I get that, and it does work, but that's for commentators. So I mean,
yeah,
your color commentators should be allowed to say things like that, and just really wind up, your play-for-play guy.
yeah. I don't know. It seems to detract a little bit when it's like he took his belt, or back when our truth was Jack and Bad News Barrett's title, saying that he stole the belt from him, isn't really as doesn't sound as big as like he's stolen the Intercontinental Championship, he's stolen his title, his prestigious title or whatever. Like you kind of with those kind of things, considering that they're championships for a fixed thing, so in reality they have no meaning. So the meaning has to come from the way people talk about it, the way it's defended, the way that's how it creates meaning.
Guys, we're halfway through the show. You know the deal now. Make sure you head over to levelsofwrestling.podbean.com. You can listen to ourselves, Wrestle Addicts, Mind of Carnage, Just Sing, and Ringside Ramblers. Don't forget as well tonight, when we're done here, you can head over to Ringside Ramblers and hear them live. That's always an extra show for you. You can head over to T Public and you get a t-shirt and become part of the Low family. Show some support and we can give you much better products at a much cheaper rate as well. At the moment, the t-shirts are on sale, so if you're going to pick one up, get it now. Save yourself some cash. And alternatively, you can head over to the Google Play Store, download our apps, just search for Levels of Wrestling, and that's free for any Android device. And you can actually check out the blog post that was put up there today. getting back into it, do you believe, Skeletor, that kayfabe is dead or dying?
I think I think kayfabe is on life support. It is. It's alive. It twitches sometimes. Like it's probably still in there somewhere,
Yeah,
but
it's like a
it's
slight coma.
yeah.
Kayfabe coma.
Because yeah, well, it's like a decent amount of guys still kind of use it, even if they don't use it as fully as guys did 20 years ago. They still incorporate it in some way. Like it's still significant to a lot of guys, but it's also been completely thrown out the window by a lot of other guys. So it's in a weird position to where like, oh, Bray Wyatt stays in kayfabe, Dean Ambrose stays in kayfabe. Like you can name off 20 guys who do, and then you can name off 20 guys who just completely don't care. And it's a weird thing.
See, one of the things that got me thinking, maybe kayfabe is dead was recently Big Show did an interview and he admitted that, the ring stump between him and Brock was rigged. Not that most of us knew that anyway, or at least guessed at it. It was one of those
You
things
you
that
would
was,
think.
yeah, it's not one of those things that was ever really answered. And
Oh,
with him coming out and saying that, to me, that's a suggestion that to WWE, maybe kayfabe is dead.
yeah, I'm not a fan of that because, like, yeah, I mean, I always believed that because I've seen, that is a ring that has held 20 guys at a time and stuff. So I really don't think 700 pounds falling on it is really gonna break it. But it you can kind of sort of believe it. You can buy into it, I guess,
Yeah, I mean,
until they say that it isn't.
and I think that's what makes it good because you overanalyze it and you're like, well, that's about 800 pounds of force moving at 30 miles an hour going towards the mat at an
Yeah, yeah,
angle.
yeah. You actually think about it, and then you're like, you kind of think of, I guess maybe, as opposed to, oh, Big Show told you no, that was completely faked and rigged.
Right, exactly. And if someone had told me that like Brock Lesnar pushing Zach Gowen down the stairs was rigged, I'd probably be like, you're wrong. But things like, the ring break and big stunts like that, or Shane jumping off the Tron, like,
Yeah,
to me, when you see stuff like that, that should be the stuff we should be questioning in kayfabe.
yeah, yeah. Because at least you're one moment.
It's always good when someone disappears. I'm imagining his bones fell off again or He-Man's invaded his household. Either way, though, you can make sure, like I said, listen to the Ringside Ramblers tonight, guys. Those guys are always bringing the show on point every single Thursday night, along with Wrestle Addicts, who will also be on tonight. So don't miss out on them. And when it gets down to it, you can also, because you've heard both of those, you'll know what's in store for July 16th. We're going to do Pod Orgy 3.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was watching my nephew and my sister came and picked him up, and I had to handle that real fast.
Well, that was much less grim than his bones fell off, He-Man got him, or he died.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
would have wished it
I
was
figured
those
you may have
things.
finally just topped yourself on the show rather than waiting until we finished.
Wait, what?
Yeah, nothing. You know how me and Paul always joke that you're just standing on the box with the noose waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
figured you just did it mid-show rather than wait until the end.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a full hour. I mean, it's kind of hard not to. You start to lose your balance on the three-legged chair.
Yeah, you were saying though about with Shane and Big Show and big stunts like that, they should remain kayfabe.
Yeah, just like there's no reason to tell people that it wasn't real. Like Daniel Bryan, like he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and he might be one of the best just pure in-ring guys ever. But he just like when he gets in like interviews, he just straight up is like, no, like none of this like was real. This is what actually went down. Like I hate that. I hate that. Like like he's very open about the fakeness like of a lot of the stuff that's been in his career. It's just unnecessary, just totally unnecessary.
And yeah, I think in the last few years, like it's always been the bigger stars. Like even John Cena now does the whole well, it's a storyline, but I am a nice guy anyway.
Oh yeah, God. I think the worst ever example of this was the freaking CM Punk line of "This isn't CM Punk talking to Triple H. This is Phil Brooks talking to Paul Levesque." That is the worst line I have ever heard because it destroys everything. It,
Right.
it,
Okay.
it, it is.
Why do you feel that was a bad line though? Because to me that was blurring the lines, so it was more like a natural kayfabe.
I hate it because it does creates this thing where you are saying, hey, you know the last 2 hours you watched? That's fake. This single thing is real. Like, pay attention to this, whatever, all that other stuff that everyone else is doing bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I mean, it's kind of like having Heath Slater and Zack Ryder go out there and be like, "Hi, we actually kind of like each other, so we're not gonna fight tonight."
Yeah, yeah, it's like or freaking if Heath Slater was like, I'm gonna do the job to this guy.
Man, I would love that
What?
to be. I would love that to be a story. Just two guys get sick of fighting, and they eventually turn and make a tag team. Like we're not doing this anymore.
These guys, the WWE seems to want us to be enemies, but we're friends, so
Yeah, it'd be great. I
what?
mean, let's mix up kayfabe.
Hey, I would like that more because that's very weird, and you can kind of think about it as if just WWE is just like a real wrestling company, but they're trying to force a feud, and they're like, nah, like you can get it doesn't automatically say everything else is fake, but it's kind of weird and implies it. I think that would be an interesting thing to do.
I mean, you do it with two guys. Like you have them feud on TV, right? Maybe a couple of weeks. They constantly fight. They go back and forth, and then one day someone catches them traveling together. Like they just get seen in a car together or something like that. And when they get out, they're like, "Oh no, we better argue. Like, why were you in my car?" I mean, it's so ridiculous, right? They could use stuff like this though. I
that
would
when
love to see that.
when my dad was a kid, he was in NWA country in Georgia, and he went to a shopping center, grocery store, or whatever, and he saw Arn Arn Anderson and I can't remember. It was someone that Forrestman had been feuding with for a long time. Well, I think it was no, it was Dusty. It was Arn Anderson and Dusty. They were shopping together in the grocery store, and this was like mind blowing to my when my 13 at the time dad, because he was like, "Oh my god, why are these two guys shopping together?"
Well, I mean, you've got to shop for the right foods to know what each other hate, how to poison each other.
You gotta know what your enemy's diet is if you have a hope to defeat them.
I see you've eaten a lot of steak. Well, I'm going to keep up and eat some eggs.
You have a thing where they're each trying to get bigger versions of the same thing. Like, he gets like a quarter pounder and he gets like half a pound of steak.
And eventually Dusty walks away with a cow.
It just becomes a big dick measuring contest.
Do you know what? After watching the Dusty special after Raw this week, I kind of believe that might happen. Like they were saying between Rick and Dusty, it would be like Ric Flair got a Rolex, so Dusty got a Rolex. So Flair got one with a gold chain. So Dusty got one with a gold chain and diamonds around the face. And Flair would get one with a huge strap, and so Dusty would go out and buy a clock. It's like we were just saying all this stupid stuff, and they're like, no, this did happen.
That's fantastic. Because you kind of assume guys like that do stuff like that because, you're fairly rich guys in the same industry and you just kind of want to compete with the other guy. But that's kind of funny from Dusty, who was, the American dream working man. To be like, oh, I need this diamond-studded Rolex so I am better than Rick.
All right, talking about the past, should kayfabe mention things that have happened in the past? Like, obviously, like WWE tend to keep, recent stories to themselves. They don't bring up the past often, not unless it's like a lifelong rivalry.
Yeah. Yeah, they bring up the past when it, like, directly really suits them. And they will take the specific bits of that history that they want, like with the Sting Triple H feud, where they cut out like half of Sting's career that you don't want to think about because it was like the crappy stuff. So it gives this implication that was just like nice guy, world champion, surfer Sting. Then he gets attacked by the NWO and becomes the Crow, and then he fights the battle against NWO, and the place closes down. That's the story they told, but the actual story is, he tag teams with RoboCop, and then becomes the Crow Sting for no reason,
And there was
and
nothing
then
else. Nothing ever happened.
yeah, and then he joins the NWO, and like it cuts out all the bullshit. Like it cuts out all
Ugh.
the, and they need to. Like, I'm okay with just messing with history or retconning stuff if it's really bad stuff, but they tend to just remove stuff for no reason. Like when Kane and Daniel Bryan were feuding, there was like zero mention of Team Hell No at any point.
Yeah, they chose not to mention that at all. And do you know what? I've just checked our Twitter feed and I'm kind of pissed. Harv saying, I'm not sure if I said this right, so I'm going to use your handle, which is hashtag push Cesaro. I'll give you that. Not bad. Kayfabe died in the 90s, sadly. Right. If Kayfabe died in the 90s, what the fuck happened with the year 2000? And like 2003, where you had like Kane and Shane, and then Undertaker being buried. Sorry, I didn't realize Undertaker being buried was real. I mean, shit
Well,
like that really gets me. Of course, that's not real.
yeah, and then they like legit, hit away Undertaker when he on TV died and stuff. Like they definitely still exists. It might not be as big of a force, a controlling force over the whole product as it used to be, but it's definitely been there the whole go.
Do you know the one kayfabe thing that always gets me is Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer being buried in cement. I don't know how they did it. The fucking magicians. I'm still not
That's a
worked out.
pretty impressive stunt that they pulled off with
Yeah,
him.
like how did they get away with that?
They are actually pretty good about stuff like that. Like back when they used to have buried alive matches, and like some of that stuff you just kind of question. Like you can figure out ways, but you don't know if that's the actual way they did it. Like it's an interesting thing that makes you think. Because yeah, I don't know how the hell they made Paul Bearer not die.
Yeah, and then they put him in a freezer, and Edge beat him up, and I mean
I
that guy
like
had
I
a
like
really
how
rough career.
I like how Paul Bearer became Kenny from South Park for a while.
I mean, following kayfabe, you think it died in the 90s, Mr. Push Cesaro. Let's also bear in mind that referee, was it Jim White, killed himself once a week. Yeah, like
I
that
forgot
happened.
about that weird angle.
Yeah, that happened in like 2005. Like he killed himself once a week on WWE.com. He would
That
find
like
a new
never
way.
resolved, did it? I don't think it
No,
ever resolved in any
he
way.
was depressed after I think it was Undertaker or Kane threw him against the cage in a Hell in a Cell,
Yeah.
and he had a neck injury or played it up as a neck injury, and they tried to kill him off like he was depressed every single week, and like some of the ways they did it were a bit out there, like he was hit by a car, he had a piano fall on him. What was the other one? He drank rat poison, like a box of rat poison.
Yep.
Like all this kind of stuff. He blew his head off with a shotgun, and Josh Matthews had to stand there and take it all.
Yeah.
Like you can't say that kayfabe's dead when they've got that kind of stuff there.
Yeah, when you have just ridiculous stuff that they never go back to, they never state. No one ever talks about that. It's like, well, that didn't happen. it's it's just kind of there. Like, yeah,
So is that
kayfabe is definitely alive.
is that maybe the issue then, that kayfabe now is too silly almost? Like not
Yeah,
enough people believe it.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing about it is it's so strange because like wrestling started off as like this thing that like 40-year-old men want. Like, well, I mean, that's still kind of the case, but like 40-year-old men smoking cigars, watching two guys in black trunks blade, like in the 1950s and stuff. Like it was kind of like an adult, not even like kind of a sleazy back thing that people did, and
Mhm.
it was and like it was more believable at that point when the most extreme thing anyone did was do like an uppercut. Because close handed was illegal, so like, oh, he threw a punch and so now he's bleeding, then that's like the most extreme thing that happens. You can kind of buy into that more, I guess. Then then Hulk Hogan hit Big Show with a freaking monster truck on WCW Nitro
Off the roof.
off the roof, and then they were both fine.
Oh yeah, next week he was on the show, no question.
No question. And that's the like weirdness to it's like comic book continuity where it gets to the point where it's like just completely broken, and people just sometimes throw it entirely away, and other times people just take elements they liked from it, and other times people take the bad stuff and try to turn it into good stuff.
I
Like,
think my perfect example of this would be like when they brought in the new Diesel and the new Razor Ramon. They tried to use the same characters and it was continuing the kayfabe, but it didn't work because people knew that they had changed.
yeah, that's a weird thing because, like, yeah, in movies and stuff, you can, and even in television to an extent, you can replace like actor and keep a character, but you cannot do that at all in wrestling, except unless it's like nobody actually knows who it is and it's a complete masked gimmick from like forever ago.
Yeah, like Sin Cara.
Yeah, I don't know. I did not watch wrestling when he came in. I only saw before he came in, and then him doing horrible jobs.
Yeah, you didn't
And
miss much. He basically just hurt people and injured himself.
yeah, I watched that little clip everyone shows. That's him trying to do like a top rope move to Dolph, and he just falls on himself and falls off the top on himself, and then
Hmm.
Dolph has to kind of awkwardly flip over to kind of make it look like a move.
And that's why they need to re-sign him. But yeah, I mean, instances like that, it does work, but it gets so difficult, I find. Like, as a fan who watches wrestling almost every single week, um, for WWE to, I don't want to say insulting my intelligence because a lot of fans say that, and it's not insulting your intelligence, just you know the product better than your average fan.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of us miss out on. That the kayfabe that they use now is to catch the average fan.
Yeah, they do have that whole thing where they try not to go back more than like 3 months at most,
Hmm.
and they generally follow that except for in extreme circumstances, and it's just I'm not a huge fan of that idea because like I kind of get it because people are afraid of having a bunch of story that they don't know. Like that's why when Marvel launched Ultimate Comics to get rid of all the canon and stuff, that stuff made a crap ton of money because people could start at issue 1 and not have 50 years of stuff to know. But I but because I know, I was alive and watching for the last, 17 years, 18 years watching wrestling, and have gone back and watched way before that. I like it when they reference things that happened.
Yeah, it makes you almost feel smarter in a way because you're like, hey, oh wow, I remember that.
Yeah, and I also what I hate that they do because they always do it is if they bring back two guys who were rivals, but they're no longer really wrestlers because they're old. They're now suddenly friends.
Oh yeah,
Like,
they've got mutual respect for each other.
yeah, I hate it because I could deal with that if wrestling was just like competitive competition, but it's not. These guys like hit you with a car and attacked your family at your home and stuff.
The recent one was at this year's WrestleMania, and it was Roddy Piper, and he was forced to shake hands with someone. Oh, it
um,
was it was Piper, Mr. T, Hogan at 30, and they all
oh
shook hands.
yeah, or when Edge came back, when with that whole thing where Seth Rollins was gonna kill him or whatever, like Seth Rollins was gonna publicly murder him on television,
Oh, we could have
and
only hoped.
the segment right before that was John Cena and him talking backstage and laughing about how Edge tried to brutally murder him several times,
Yeah,
and
remember
it's just you should not be friends.
remember that time you ran me over with a car and then you slapped my dad and came to my house? Yeah, I'm not saving you in the next segment.
Yeah, like it's so weird because like if Dusty and Flair are like shown together and they're friends despite it's like decades of rivalry and hate and Rick getting three other dudes to attack him in a parking lot and stuff. Like, like you should not be friends. It doesn't make any sense for you
Well, if
guys to have
I've
made
learned
up.
anything from bullies in WWE, it's that they always become your friend in the end. Like whether you turn or they turn, you're always going to become friends. Because kayfabe is dead. No, it's not. But yeah,
Yeah, it's like, or when like I had a moment when I was a kid. Well, but Marty and Jannetty and Shawn like briefly tried to do the like rockers thing again for like a couple weeks. And I'm like, really, Marty? The guy who
did,
attacked you and ruined your career
did
is
you learn nothing
buds.
the first time round?
Yeah, the guy who publicly betrayed you and then ruined your life is you're just best buds again.
But hey, if Jesus can forgive Judas, then anyone can, be happy.
Yeah, it's just I don't know why I want Ric Flair to still be talking shit about rivals from 50 years ago. Like he should still hate Harley Race. He should still talk shit about Harley Race to this day. That is how that should work.
I still want JR and Kane to hate each other after being set on fire.
Yeah, if JR sees Kane, he should freak out and run.
Like Michael Cole now needs to do that with Brock Lesnar forever.
Yeah, he should be terrified of Brock from today until the end of time. He should be, if he comes by the broadcast table, Michael should be topping the barricade.
And so should Cadillacs.
Cadillacs should be terrified of Brock Lesnar.
That would be a great advert. I would love to see that. You know how they did the advert and it was Brock carrying a shark? Let's have
Yeah.
Brock just destroying cars in a car lot.
I like this idea that he walks into a parking lot and you see like 8 different caddies pull out and drive away quickly.
That'd be great. You would have to use it for a different company though, like Honda, only safe for around Brock.
Brock won't F5 your car.
Yeah, it'd be great. I would appreciate that. I'm really pissed off he didn't F5 the door.
I thought he was going to F5 the door.
It would
I
have been
was,
amazing.
I oh, I felt so bad for freaking J&J security because oh my god, those guys are tiny and Jamie's like kind of busted up and he still gets Kimura locked and kneed like 8 times in the chest and thrown.
My favorite thing about this is those guys have both retired because they've been injured, and Brock's manhandling them like they're pork chops at a buffet.
Yeah, Jamie Noble had a career-ending spinal injury, and he's still just getting thrown around.
Right, and Joey Mercury got like German suplexed into the windshield of a car.
Yeah, he fell neck and shoulders first in a car windshield.
And no one went, oh man, I bet they're hurt. But that kid got hit with a door.
But they're back to wrestling, so it's not like Jamie and Joey still like have come back to wrestling sometimes. But I like the idea that those guys retired. They're like, man, wrestling 5-minute matches with Sheamus is too physically intensive, and now they're being murdered by Brock Lesnar.
To be honest, if I was Jamie Noble, I would not want to be near Sheamus.
Oh God, no.
That should be kayfabe. They should carry that.
Sheamus did on Twitter. He I can't remember during the Authority versus Team Cena thing. And Sheamus was on Team Cena until he got hurt. He had a segment like he kicked the shit out of J&J security, and then he was like, he put up a thing on Twitter about how he ended Jamie Noble. If Jamie Noble's not careful, he's gonna end his career again.
See, yeah, that stuff, that's good. I would like that stuff. Like, that's clever kayfabe.
Because Sheamus powerbombed Jamie so hard that Jamie went 5 years into the future.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
That's what I believe happened. He disintegrated on impact and reappeared in 2014.
Yeah, it's like when the DeLorean hits 88 miles per hour. I mean, he did that
Yeah,
going
he was
into the map.
falling at 88 miles per hour. So
Yeah.
in the split second between before he hit the ground, he teleported through time.
And it would have been fine had he not eaten that flux capacitor at lunchtime.
Turns out that squirrel he ate had a flux capacitor in it.
I like how you're saying that he's redneck, so therefore ate squirrels. Well
Yeah,
done.
he ate squirrels.
Wow. I've just got this terrifying image of like Bray Wyatt eating alligator while Jamie Noble sits next to him eating squirrel.
Squirrels. And it's not like cooked, it's just a squirrel that has its neck broke. Oh, I will say one of my favorite little details, which I guess is a kayfabe thing, just little touch, was how awfully Jamie Noble ruined that car in his week with it. Because he put a camouflage racing stripe on it.
Yeah, it was perfect.
He stenciled the word redneck on the windshield and put a bunch of spokes that do nothing on the back and got J&J written on the trunk and stuff. And a big skull on the front.
I would put money on it. I would genuinely put money on it. This has been the best time of Joey Mercury's career.
Joey Mercury has a pinfall victory over a WWE champion.
Yeah, right. That's kayfabe and needs to be continued, which is disgusting. But yeah.
The freaking car thing, I joked on Twitter that Jamie Noble took more value off of that car than Brock Lesnar did.
Oh man, poor guy. I just wanted to see Nydia in the boot.
Oh god, I just even if you don't see her because I can't get her or whatever, even if you don't see her, I want him to get a call when he's in the middle of doing some heel stuff, like jumping a dude after a match or whatever. I'm gonna get a call and be like, "No, sorry, honey, I'm at work. I'm doing something right now."
Yeah, or even have one of the commentators say, "Oh, I bet that was Nydia."
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea that she's like his old housewife now because it's been 10 years.
Just heading back to the trailer.
She's still blind from when Tajiri blew mist in her eyes.
Oh god, I remember that.
I just rewatched a match where she was blind because
was that like No Mercy 2003 or something?
Because I watched the Rumble like from like 2004, and she was still blind, and I was like, this is the greatest thing.
See, that's good. That's good continuity though, because at least they continued that.
Yeah, they did. She tripped up. He was wrestling Rey Mysterio, and he did a really quick run and bounce off the ropes. So she assumed it was Rey going for a 619. So she stretched out her arms and grabbed the ankles, but it was him. So he falls right on his face and costs him the match.
See, that's clever. I mean, another one recently had been Rusev with his foot cast.
Yeah, because it was a actual injury, but now they played it off like it was fake. It's great because he just rips it off.
Yeah, I'm okay with that kind of kayfabe. Like, you're kind of questioning, like, how injured was he?
Yeah, because he super kicks Dolph with it, so it does more damage, and then he freaking just rips it off like it was nothing.
And then punches him with it. Yeah.
So he was either, like, the implication is that he was either, like, barely hurt or not hurt, or he's been healed up for weeks, but has just been waiting to jump this guy who he can't stand.
And I think the important thing to remember now, and Paul will be very happy, is Rusev wears boots.
Rusev finally has footwear.
He has footwear. It only took him, like, what, a year and 6 months in WWE to get footwear?
Yeah. He finally was able to go buy some Nikes from the store. Because I'm glad that he's not wrestling. But I freaking hate the wrestling barefoot thing, and it's and especially since it caused him to get injured, he needed to start wearing shoes.
Yeah, Russian pointy shoes because Vince and Kevin Dunn just love that kind of stuff. Curly Cossack shoes.
To be fair, I just think of it as an Iron Sheik tribute.
Wow. He will make you humble and then crush you.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be too close to the Iron Sheik because he even does the camel clutch.
Yeah, he's got 20-pound weight in his shoe, and he cracks people in the head with it.
Just before we go, my one favorite thing that I want to see happen with kayfabe, I want to see Emma literally steal a title belt. I want to see it, and they can play it like it's a problem.
I I want Emma to find to like go through someone's purse or whatever backstage, and she pulls out their iPad, and then she takes out the iPad and just steals the case.
That'd be great. I would love that. And it's the kind of thing Vince would do to punish someone as well.
Well, she was fired for the shortest amount of time I've ever seen anyone get fired from WWE. She was released for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, about that, yeah. Guys, we have come to the end of the show. Now, we've spoke our way through this, and we've said what we like in kayfabe and if it's still around or not. But we want to hear from you. So come over to our Twitter at Leveler, LOW, and let us know, is kayfabe dead or is it still alive? Alternatively, you can head over to levelsofwrestling.podbean.com where you can listen to all of our podcasts, including the Wrestle Addicts, Just Saying, Ringside Ramblers, and Mind of Carnage. Then you can head across to TeePublic, and you can check out our t-shirts, which are on sale at the moment for only $14, which have our full design on them, and you can get them in a variety of colors, including hoodies and tank tops as well. If you haven't picked one up, or if you have, let us know. We'll get a couple of selfies, send them in to us, and we'll give you a shout out on next week's lowdown. Don't forget as well, you can always download our app with Google Play Store. Just search Levels of Wrestling, and you can download it straight for Android, and that gives you access to everything we've done all in one place on the go. Guys, this has been Breakdown. We have been the Levels of Wrestling. I've been joined by Skeletor. Good night.
David Arquette forever.